Some bones very small and only names necessary to know. For example, this small bone, that is nasal bone, os nasalia, that is all. Or it is vomer, participate in septum nasi, that is vomer, between crista sphenoidalis of sphenoid bone and crista nasalis of palatine bone, that is vomer. That is all, only name. Or look here. This bone is concha nasalis inferior. That is isolated bone which attached to maxilla. Concha nasalis inferior. That is all. Only name of this concha. This one is ethmoid bone. Os ethmoidalia. It consists of lamina cribrosa, here it is, lamina perpendicularis, and labyrinths. Labyrinthus ethmoidalis, that is right labyrinth, and here it is left labyrinth. Above of lamina cribrosa we have crista galli. Lateral surface of labyrinth has lamina orbitalis, here and here. Inside of labyrinths, cells of ethmoid bone, cellular ethmoidalis, and inferior surface has two concha, concha nasalis superior and concha nasalis media. These two concha, they are parts of ethmoid bone, but inferior concha, concha nasalis inferior, that is isolated bone. It is unpaired bone at the base of the skull. Here it is, you can see lamina cribrosa, crista galli, and this bone insert in incisura ethmoidalis between two pars orbitalis of frontal bone, if you remember from previous classes. What else? This bone is nasal bone, os nasale, os lacrimale, lacrimal bone, os lacrimale, and lacrimal bone has crest of lacrimal bone, crista lacrimalis, and groove sulcus lacrimalis. Zygomatic bone, here it is, os zygomaticum. You already know zygomatic process of what? Of temporal bone. Here it is zygomatic process of frontal bone. And the same we have zygomatic process in maxilla. In a minute I will explain. And these three processes attached to zygomatic bone. And zygomatic bone has two processes, processus frontalis attached to frontal bone and processus temporalis attached to temporal bone. And it has three surfaces. This surface is facies orbitalis, it's look into the orbita, facies lateralis, lateral surface, and here it is facies temporalis, looks into the temporal bone, temporal fossa, facies temporalis. That is all about zygomatic bone. Next, maxilla. It is paired bone, paired. Here it is left, that is left maxilla. It has body, corpus, maxilla. Here it is corpus, body of maxilla, and four processes. Here it is frontal process, but it's broken. Look here. That is frontal process. It's attached to the frontal bone. That is processus frontalis anteriorly. Here it is processus frontalis. Then zygomatic process, processus zygomaticus. Alveolar process with teeth, that is processus alveolaris, and palatine process, processus palatinus, palatine process. Body of maxilla has four surfaces: facies anterior, here it is, facies orbitalis, facies infratemporalis, and nasal surface, facies nasalis. Nasal surface has opening which continues into large sinus, that is the largest sinus, sinus maxillaris, here it is groove, sulcus lacrimalis. This crest, and that is continuation of this crest, that is crista conchalis, that is place where inferior concha attach, crista conchalis, and superiorly that is crista ethmoidalis. Here it is concha nasalis media of ethmoid bone attached. Above of palatine process we have crista nasalis, this one. In facies orbitalis we have groove, sulcus infraorbitalis, and this groove continues at the same canal, canalis infraorbitalis, and canal opens with the help of foramen infraorbitale, sulcus infraorbitalis, canalis infraorbitalis, and foramen infraorbitale. Foramen opens on anterior surface, and anterior surface the same has fossa canina. Fossa canina, it is opposite to canine dens, that is third tooth of the maxilla, that is canine tooth, and it is fossa canina. Facies infratemporalis has tuber maxilla, it is tuber maxilla, and this groove is sulcus palatinus major. Sulcus palatinus major. That is maxilla. How to identify? Is it right or left? Processus frontalis should be anteriorly, and nasal surface looks medially. That is left bone. Mandible, mandibula. It consists of body, corpus mandibular, and branches. Ramus mandibula, that is right and left branch. Ramus mandibula. They joined with the help of angle, angulus mandibula. Lateral surface of angulus mandibula has tuberositas masseterica, and internal surface has tuberositas pterygoidea, place of attachment of pterygate muscle. Ramus mandibula subdivides into two processes: coronoid process, processus coronoidus, and condyloid process, processus condylaris. Between them, notch, incisura mandibulae. Condyloid process has head of the mandible, caput mandibula, and neck of the mandible, column mandibula. And anteriorly, neck of the mandible has fovea pterygoidea. It's also place of attachment of pterygate muscle. Lateral pterygate muscle attached to the fovea pterygoidea. On inner surface, internal surface of mandible, we can see beginning of canal, canalis mandibulae, and this canal closed with the help of small tongue, lingula mandibulae, small spine, lingula mandibulae. Here it is sulcus miliaeidus, and the same muscle, musculus miliaeidus, attached here it is. Spina mentalis here, and laterally from spina mentalis, here and here, we have fossa digastrica, digastric muscle attached to this fossa, fossa digastrica. That is protuberantia mentalis and foramen mentalis. Here it is crista buccinatoria. It starts from ramus mandibula and continues to posterior tooth, that is third molar, that is crista buccinatoria, place of attachment of buccinator muscle. It is unpaired bone, that is good news for you. Next bone is palatine bone, palatine, and there is no hide bone. Palatine bone on the whole skull, here it is, that is lamina horizontalis, and here it is lamina perpendicularis. It has two lamina, horizontal and perpendicular, and opposite bone here, lamina horizontalis and lamina perpendicularis. Maybe we have. Here it is lamina perpendicularis and lamina horizontalis. Lamina horizontalis of palatine bone, it's fused together with palatine process of maxilla. That is why this crest, crista nasalis of maxilla, continues at the same crista nasalis in lamina horizontalis of palatine bone. Here was crista conchalis and crista ethmoidalis, and these two crests continues to perpendicular lamina, that is crista conchalis, and here it is crista ethmoidalis. These two crests, the same like in maxilla. Then pyramidal process, processus pyramidalis. This process starts from the place where lamina horizontalis joined with lamina perpendicularis, and from here we have processus pyramidalis. This process insert in space between lamina medialis and lamina lateralis of pterygate process of sphenoid bone. Here it is, this process that is pyramidal process of palatine bone, processus pyramidalis. Lamina perpendicularis superiorly subdivides into two processes. One of them is processus sphenoidalis and another processus orbitalis, and between them we have notch, incisura sphenopalatina, incisura, because superiorly above of this process we have sphenoid bone, os sphenoidale. That is why name of this notch, incisura sphenopalatina, and on the whole skull that is opening, foramen sphenopalatinum. Here it is impossible to see. Next time try to receive skull with number 10. 10 because our classroom is number 10. Try to receive skull with number 10, and in 10th skull we can see foramen sphenopalatinum. Here it is absent. Next, what else? Hide bone, that is last bone, hide bone, os hyoidum, os hyoidum. That is name, hide bone, body, corpus ossis hyoidii, and two horns, lesser and greater horns, cornu minus and cornu maius, lesser and greater horns. That is all about hide bone. Well, that is all. Bones of the facial skull and ethmoid bone, Next time.